Good morning. Let's give a few moments for you guys to receive your notifications. If we get enough people interested for a spiritual development discussion today, we'll go for it. If not, we'll try another day. Good morning. Please let me know in chat if sound is okay. Normally it is, but if there's any disturbances, now's a good time to let me know. Yeah. Good morning, David, Joshua, Christian, Sophia, Pure Organic Love, cool name. Full Moon in Capricorn, oh boy. D. King, Cindy Borrell, Meg, Lynn, Mindy, Alma, Janaea. Hi. You guys want to have some tea with me? Hey, Anya. Thanks for being here. Hi, Cassie. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Alma. Capitola, God's Light. Sweet. Hi, Omi. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Deborah. Hi, Christine. Hey, Antonio. All right. So I was triggered by a book that my kid is reading in grade school, my middle kid, my youngest boy, but I have 4, so he's my middle kid. And I wanted to get your perspective of it. I love to hear your perspective. So the book is The Giver. I was triggered by it so much that I'm going to go get the other 3 dystopian novels and read them as well. I read it I spent 2 hours reading it one day, and then the second day I finished it, and that was yesterday. So wanted to get your take on that, especially parents. Yeah. I was triggered by the role of the giver. Everything about like dystopian society books does not shock me at all. Anytime they say they've completely deprogrammed emotions and any degree of creative separation, I go, yeah, that's expected. It's a dystopian novel. But everybody gets all shocked by that having seen what I've seen in this world and in others, yeah, I'm not shocked. I was shocked by the role of the giver and the role of the receiver because it felt so true. I really related to the role of the giver. I could see that being a story of almost my entire life, with the exception of he gets to be alone and I'm pretty much forced to be social. Right? When you're a mom, you are forced to be social. I could feel, if you could imagine walking into a grocery store and whoever you happen to stand, I'd say within a few yards of, you're going to hear all of their thoughts, all of them. So there are a lot of thoughts in just one person. One person's thoughts alone can go up to 5 thoughts consecutively, simultaneously, and that's it's not even up to, that's a minimum. That's 5 conscious thoughts, like what they're aware of. I'm not even talking about the subconscious level, which they're not aware of, so I don't hear them as much. I just feel them, mostly in my body. So there's a pain associated with the role of the giver in this book. And the giver is separated from society and seen as a very honorable master who needs that alone time in order to manage holding the pain and memories of an entire collective. That is what I've been doing since age 5 in this lifetime. Every single day of my life, I wanted to cry for him, especially at the end. But it wasn't really an end. It's a very unusual ending for a first book. And it really brought light to me about why I need boundaries, why I can't have a lot of people around me, why it's been the ultimate learning experience to have 4 children. And 3 of those children are similar to me in those ways. 3 of them have my abilities so far. And the 4th one we'll see in time. Right? So that was really, really interesting to observe that and to see that that the role in that book, that the giver was exactly that. That's my life, except he gets to kind of stay by himself and not have to deal with society. And I do. I choose to teach society, everyone. So there's the differences in that way. I could just really, really, really strongly identify with the role of the giver. So that was a fun experiment to do that. And then I got tagged or mentioned or something in a spiritually awakening group, and the group is called Awaken Your Soul. And I got tagged on a post where someone was asking, and she was asking in a way about spiritual awakening, kind of how to, she doesn't have money to spend on courses or on a guru, but she wants her spiritual side to grow. And she's a seeker, and she's very focused on the knowledge and how to focus and crack down and learn more. Yeah. So it wasn't her question that was so shocking. It was people's answers. So I'm going to hand the floor to you. Tell me how someone wakes up. Anybody? If someone comes to you right now, what are you going to say to them about how to spiritually awaken? Do you have an owner's manual on that? Do you have a blueprint? Is there something that you do? Is there an action behind this? Do you see where I'm going? Someone said meditation straight away. I know I've taught you well that a lot of you are saying that. I'm super happy you're saying that. Near-death experience, that's more of an action that happens to you and for you. It's a gift. I had them too, Christian. Sarah, you're on it. There is no action guideline for a unique, creative individual to awaken. Tiffany, yes. Yes, so knowledge is actually painful. If you go read the book, The Giver, as my kid just did and I just did, you'll get a very inside view of my life when you finally meet the giver in the book. It's about halfway through. And you'll understand how painful it is to hold knowledge. So the course of awakening in a modern world is about use of knowledge, not holding knowledge inside of yourself. That's actually painful. If the mind utilizes knowledge in the spiritual awakening process, suffering happens almost immediately. If you utilize knowledge in the external world and you understand the place of the knowledge in the intellect and use it wisely, you begin to see that knowledge has its place in the world, but knowledge doesn't actually have a place in awakening. In Eastern yoga, there are 8 limbs, and I find it very, very interesting. But the most important limb is not tapas. Tapas is the knowledge and the study and the discipline of the study. It's helpful, but it's not how most people awaken. What branch of yoga do you believe most people would use in awakening? Not what the easiest way is, but what is a tried and true way? What are some of the tried and true ways? Anybody? Someone said I started channeling my cat. Good luck with that. Trauma awakens, yeah, but trauma isn't something you do. This is something that's not. Trauma is an action that happens for you and to you in an external world. It is an effect, not a cause. There's something deeper. Trauma is the action. Yes, gratitude and forgiveness or emotional technologies used in yoga. Absolutely. Yeah. So in Eastern yoga, someone would say that meditation is a deep part of it, that your ability to breathe is a deep part of it. They call that pratyahara. Prana is the breath. Sorry, that's energy management. They call it pranayama. Prana is the life force of the breath, of the breath, otherwise known in Qigong as the Qi. Pranayama is how you utilize breath as the life force to awaken to you. So that is actually the tried and true way for all masters on this planet. That if you can meditate properly, Yogananda stated to me and to the world, but one of the first things he said to me was, sit in an asana properly for 30 seconds and you'll add 30 years to your life. Yeah. So awareness of your breath is one. Meditation and asana is another. I don't even care if it's an appropriate asana, any asana or none, just meditate. In America, you work with what you got. Another thing is pratyahara. Pratya in Sanskrit, it means to draw in or to draw back. Ahara is energy. Energy from what? Energy from your food that you eat, energy from your emotions, whether to take in emotions from others. Empaths, you will certainly understand this. But it's about the management, the taking in or the drawing back of energy. And this is one way to wake up as well. So there are 8 ways in Eastern Yoga. Yeah. Kundalini is I'm not going to denounce it. It is an American way. Some people say that would come in through the Sikhs, but it's the Americans that turn that into a practice of Kundalini, not the Sikhs. Sikhs actually work with energy and pratyahara via the art of the sound management. So it's about sound for them. They have to use the word Kundalini because it gets American attention and actually makes you do the practice. Because Americans are always looking for a shiny. They're like, if my Kundalini will rise, then I will be gifted. Then I will do the meditation. It's true. So that was a tricky way to get your attention to actually do the work of Kundalini yoga. Yeah, but it's not about raising your Kundalini. Most yogis will tell you to leave your Kundalini the hell alone until you fully get a grasp of your thoughts and your emotions and your body. True story. Someone asked, but first, don't we need the will to wake up? No, you actually don't. That's your mind telling you and giving you an excuse not to. And the mind will give you plenty of those excuses. Self-inquiry, yes, it is absolutely powerful, Helene. However, the mind will talk you out of it because it doesn't really feel good. Self-inquiry is not a feeling state, it's a quieting state. How are we God? My answer to you is, how are we not? God is not a not. Does God make mistakes? No. There is no not in God. Nothing is separate in God. Nothing. You are a no thing. All right. So I wanted to read to you some people's questions and my responses and explain that a little bit before I start getting into your questions. So I'm going to do that for a bit because I think it'll be really helpful. I'm having my lion's mane mushroom tea this morning. Honestly, my mind still wants it to be coffee. Every single time I drink it, I'm like, you're not coffee. Taming your cravings are a big way to stay on track. How does it taste? Well, if you prepare it properly, and what I mean by that is create it, David, like you're going to create your chai tea. So you're going to heat up your milk, or in my case, cashew milk. You're going to put in your cinnamon into that as it's getting warm. You put in some organic vanilla flavoring. You're going to heat all that up. And then finally, you're going to whisk in your mushroom, your powdered mushrooms. Yeah. And you're going to then add some raw honey to make it not taste like a horse's behind smells. That's the most important step. Yeah. Yeah. For empaths coffee, you'll hear me. It is what I miss the most about having an addiction. I don't have addictions these days. I don't have attachments or addictions these days. So I went through a stage in my awakening journey, and every stage is a stage. If you think you're enlightened and you say you are, universe will show you where it's not true. True story. And the moment you think you are, the universe shows you all the places you need to work on. And for me, it was attachment. So then I got through attachment. Okay, still getting through attachment, still in the replacement stages of putting mushrooms in my tea and just hoping that it will taste like coffee, right? So I get through the attachment and commend myself saying, it could be worse. Do you guys do that? It could be drugs. It could be wine. It could be, do you do that? So you get through that, you get through attachment, and you're like, oh, yes, I feel so good. This is what awakening feels like. And the mind goes, yeah, it's it. And then something creeps in and says, what about your judgments? And I'm like, what? I let go of judgment first. And the mind's like, oh, did you now? So now we're working on judgments again. The enlightenment cycle is perpetual. If you stop growing, body dies. You won't be here. There are some rare gurus on this planet who, I won't say reached enlightenment, but attained a samadhi state where they stopped growing, but that was just because of their state of samadhi that they chose in their contracts to go to teach you how to also do the same, or how it's even possible. It was like their example was to show a potentiality that a samadhi state could happen, right? And that you could stay in it. I have those states and then I come out of them. I actually don't want to stay in it. I long for growth. I crave growth. So your awakening experience, your enlightenment experience, your realization experience, whatever it is we want to call it, will be personal and powerful and creative, probably, for some of you. For some of you listening today, you are creative awakeners like me, like attracts like. So I would find more stages of awakening, and then I would think that I reach it, and then more comes, and more comes, and more comes. It's really, really important to see what happens in this journey. But it is an evolution that does not stop. And if it does stop, you better rest assured that your time in the body is about to be nigh. Like it's a limited time. Time is limited in that capacity. So in other words, you don't reach it. It's not an action. So let me read some of these questions that I saw on this forum this morning. The question was, do I spend thousands on spiritual mentoring and an awakened school? Or do I read and learn more about my own spiritual connection? I've done a lot of self-discovery work, but I feel I need something more spiritual. I don't have thousands to spend on courses. What are your tips to awakening and focusing and learning more? The moderator of the group said, well, actually, you do it yourself. My concern about that answer is it's not that simple, because the mind likes to step in and tell you that it is the doer and that you are the doer. In true awakening, there is no doer. There is no other to do. There are actions. There is a cause and effect scenario based upon the dream of separation. And you will begin to observe effects, and you will recognize that, as we say in alchemy, when there's a candle, the flame is not the cause. There is action around that's just sparking and happening. And then you stop looking at everything that's outside of you as being something that's separate, better than, lesser than, more worthy, less worthy, etc. So there isn't something to do for yourself, would be my response to that. It's not that simple. Conditioning is, as people often say, when something's difficult, they're like, the struggle is real. So in conditioning, in the 3D world, the struggle is real. There's it's a capitalist world here in the United States, and there's a lot of judgments, attachments, and conditions towards judgments and attachments being your ultimate strength. You are taught that those judgments and attachments and that capitalist way of life is who and what you are. You are taught that your job, your role, your hobbies, your success, that is all who you are. And it takes a while to undo. It comes from culture. You guys want to undo that? Start with a book that isn't even in the spiritual section. Don't go to the New Age place in Barnes and Nobles. Trust me on this. Read Ishmael, My Ishmael, and then The Story of B by Daniel Quinn. And you will understand conditioning. And you will see it like you've seen it in no other place. And you will recognize how you can begin to undo it. And you can recognize where the world's headed if we don't. If you are struggling with depression, please don't read this book. It's not for a mind who can't control sadness and pain. It's not for you. If you're not there, don't read it, please. I speak from very personal experience on that, not from a judgment of anybody who's in that place. I speak from having had this book land in my lap, and then I just ate up the whole series like it was chocolate brownies or coffee. I could not stop reading. Anyway, awakening is not something you do yourself. It's not that simple. Conditioning is difficult, and it may require some teaching. It may or may not be something that arises from within you that just happens for you, and it certainly isn't a doing or an action. All right? Someone else said, I recommend the books by Abraham Hicks. I do as well, but I recognize that her channelings for me, the Abraham Collect channelings were much more important than the reading of a book. Specific channelings led by your own spirit. Have you ever done that? Have you ever gone to Abraham Hicks on YouTube and just said, yep, this one? Spirit guides like that. I've not once read a whole book by Abraham Hicks, not once. I've never been fully impressed that I required or desired to do it. But I have gone, hey, this one, hey, that one. Spirit will lead you in that way. So the concern about modern culture, particularly American spiritual writings, okay, is that there's this modern approach to law of attraction, and it is incomplete. It is not inaccurate. It is simply incomplete. So then you are taught by some very powerful, beautiful books out there, but still it insinuates within these books, like The Secret, that the law of attraction is the only way to attract something in your life. And that is the foundation and basis of manifestation and abundance. And they make abundance be the key to everything. And that's a simplified version that's missing a lot. So I urge you to become alchemists. I urge you to do your own research. Perhaps go deeper into universal law and understand the law of reflection, the law of resonance, the law of rhythm. There is so much more to it, okay, than what you're going to get from standard Americanized, simplified, incomplete law of attraction teachings. I hold no apology in that explanation. It is incomplete. Someone advised Sadhguru Inner Engineering free online twice daily. Abso-freaking-lutely. Because discipline is a way, it's one of the branches of yoga. It's one of the branches of yoga that teaches you just ways to awaken. And the mind, just typically speaking, if your mind is resistant to it, that means you need it. Do you hear that? When your mind is resistant to a spiritual practice, do it. You'd be surprised the powerful benefits that arise for you. Okay, so when you go, I can't meditate, I can't sit in asana, I can't. I, as your teacher, do not want to hear that shite. The end. Discipline breeds the happiest and most successful results for a lot of people. It's the one way that will work for almost every creative being, because creative people require more discipline by nature. You require it by nature. Otherwise, your intellects are very sharp and it will begin to just, it's if your journey in life is a carriage and the intellect is the horse that's driving the carriage, it needs someone directing it, not necessarily whipping it like you see in the 18th century visions that you're getting. I'm kind of picking up on some of the things that you're going through here. You're like, oh, that's too hard. No, there's a balance. We can talk about that if you want. Don't whip your ego into submission. That's not loving. But there does require a discipline, a certain state of recognizing where your resistance lies and meeting it where you are, meeting yourself where you are and honoring it, okay? So yeah, I do like the inner engineering program. Another person says, we are born spiritual. Everything is inside of us. This is a standard oneness yogi response from a yogi who is so mastered, by the way, that everything they say, you're going to go, yeah, but I don't feel that way right now. So his response, we are born spiritual. Everything is inside of us. Inner peace, heart, soul, God, enlightenment, or whatever you call it. There's only one way to return to source, which is meditation. So that's the other thing you get in oneness teachings. There's only one way. Let me tell you, meditation is definitely not the only way. Many of you listening today could attest to that. It is required at some point for you to meditate, even 20 minutes a day at the very, very minimum. And there's various types of meditation, not just the quiet meditation that you think that you're going to get through. I don't often do that these days. I used to, but you have to meditate in some degree, in some fashion. It could be guided. I like chanting. I really, really love chanting and meditation. So in oneness teachings of that way, the master is speaking from a perspective where he's not meeting the student where they are. So my response to that is, it's true, but masters out there, please refrain from making it look easy for the seeker. It's not easy for the seeker. It's not easy to crack the difficult, painful, suffering-based codes of the brain and the cultures which condition that brain for survival. Okay, so beginning seekers need a real good course of undoing before they even allow themselves to properly meditate. Otherwise, they go, oh, meditation, I can't do it. You don't understand. You guys done that? Yeah. Another person says you can just continue to do your own research. You can always go to a library, look in sections 133 and 155. Also believe the psychology section is 330. Psychology is an incomplete way. It's a basic way. It can be good for starters just to kind of understand how your mind works, but it is an incomplete way. I've actually never been to section 133 and 155, so I have no response to that person. Yeah, I did grow up in a library where I was primarily in the literature section, all sorts of literature, any books that are literature classics that I could get my hands on, I was going for. And I had a sway towards the darker ones like Edgar Allan Poe and William Faulkner and Joseph Conrad and Emily Dickinson, although I hesitate to attribute her in the dark section. She can go there. Ezra Pound. I mean, I could keep going. I had a little bit of a flavor for the bizarre in my literature choices as a child and still as an adult. If there's anything that I haven't written, either, I say written because I was some of these authors and other times, but if I hadn't read it in this lifetime, I'll go read it. Because to connect to these ancient minds where they didn't even use the word spiritual awakening, Walt Whitman would connect to water. Walden was a good example of that. Joseph Conrad let a river in Africa teach him. And he learned from his biggest spiritual teacher was malaria. um, Immaculate in Brazulia. Incredible learning experience. That was her teacher. Rwanda was her teacher. So read where your heart calls you, right? But intellect itself is not the driving factor. There's something that your heart will call you, and then it will utilize intellect to pull you deeper, and you will connect with that author in ways that you can begin to creatively aspire in your life. It's hard for me to put that into words for you, but I think you can feel where I'm coming from with that suggestion. The presence process, oh, bless your sweet heart, whoever said that. So it works. I've done it. Deep respect. That degree of shadow work, absolutely. And it is the hardest thing you'll ever do. It's a little bit much in terms of, from my experience, guys, this is just my experience and that of many students who've worked with me. When we went through the presence process together, after a certain amount of time, the book says, do this for 10 weeks, 10 weeks. Some of you might get certain thing done in 2 weeks. So why you want to beat yourself up with the same shadow for 10 weeks straight? You don't need to. But if you really do, your heart will know it. If you've really created that in-depth of a problem that you need to beat yourself up for 10 weeks over, okay. But you don't have to. There's easier ways, is what I can say about the presence process. And easy is really a point of reference even. I mean, that would be some people's desire. That would be their way where they say, wow, I love that. I love that. Deep shadow workers, they love that. I preferred The Work by Byron Katie. That was my deepest shadow work presence. And just those 4 questions that happen after the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, you guys go Google that. Go Google Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. Write that down right now. Do it with a problem that's coming about in your life. Small or big, doesn't matter. And then go to those 4 questions at the end. Write those 4 questions down on an index card. Laminate that shit. Put that in your purse or your cell phone holder or whatever you carry. And every time you feel bad, any trigger that comes up, pull out those 4 questions and ask yourself those 4 questions in relation to your pain. Oh my goodness, the work. Yes. 1000%. I can say that from personal experience and from thousands of students who I've guided through with the work. Byron Katie is someone I highly respect as a teacher. And if your ego is sitting there resistant to it right now and you're going, yeah, go do it and get back with me later. I mean, go really do it. Don't tell me you did the work once. I mean, go really do it. Neville Goddard, I haven't gone there yet. But I have a sense of him that he teaches a complete version of the law of attraction. That's my sense without having any personal experience. That's my sense when I channel him, by the way. So if you feel that way too, go for it. Way of mastery, yes, and yes all over again. Way of mastery for me as a guideline to awakening, I really did read and do the coursework in that a lot. It was so simple. It was like the way of, it sort of reminded me of Course in Miracles Demystified. If you are going to go through A Course in Miracles, go straight to the student's workbook in order to just really understand how to do the course. And they're going to demystify the topics of the course. And they give you little things that you do daily for 30 days. 30 days, 30 lessons, I believe it is. Do that before you read it. So do that first, and then go to the teacher's manual behind that and read that and let it sink into your life, and then go read ACIM. Okay? That's one way if you're not a part of an ACIM group, if you don't have an ACIM teacher, that's one way to do it. If you want to go hardcore with oneness teachings and you really want to do the go big or go home thing, go to Master LaValle's book, How to Become a Christ. They have some, right now, it's pretty overrun. They have a lot of people there, thanks to me continually leading people in their direction. But I would join one of their free Zoom groups to learn more about oneness teachings. It's not a lighter version of oneness teachings, though. It is hardcore. If you want that, you like oneness, go for it. And then in order to challenge yourself to stay in your creative form in life, then go into alchemy. Read the Kabbalion. Don't just read it, live it. How do I feel about Teal Swan? I don't know Teal Swan. I haven't followed Teal Swan's teachings. I have no comment. I don't comment on people that I haven't personally done their work. If you feel called, try it out for yourself. Someone says just pray a little. That was the next response. And then cord cutting was her second response. It didn't work for me. I'm not going to say no to it, but I'm going to say that it is an incomplete way, both of the suggestions. Why? Because praying is taught by conditioned society, and praying is supplication. When you pray, what do most of you do? God, please don't let that happen. God, please intervene. God, please give me something that I think I want. That's the short version of it. And God doesn't work that way. It's not about your desires or your wants. You get what you need. So if you pray in gratitude and you learn the difference in how to pray, praying can be effective, but praying in supplication is the way that most people are taught in a conditioned society. So that's why prayer often doesn't work, because people don't know the sacred way to pray. If you want to learn more about really how to pray, follow Carolyn Mace. Yeah, I know some of you eye rolling over there. She was pretty hardcore in her younger years, but take a look at her channel now. She's a walking, living, breathing example of grace. Okay. Cutting cords, why? God isn't about separation. Why are you going to cut yourself off? Why are you going to cut yourself off? I just don't get that. I find that making boundaries in the 3D world is significantly different, because you can't actually cut yourself off. You actually can't cut yourself off fully from others. Have you guys tried it? I mean, they can honor your boundaries. True. And boundaries are important, but they won't actually separate you from God. There's nothing that can separate you from God in oneness. So cord cutting, it is all those things that you think you're cutting off, they bounce back when you do a cord cutting thing in shamanic journeying. And then it's like all the things you were trying to avoid by the cord cutting itself, come back like fast and hardcore, because that person was actually holding that suffering, holding that pain, holding those lessons. You cut it. And then where does it go? Where does that energy go? It comes back to you. The lessons still come, and by the way, they come harder, they come faster, they come more creatively and more painfully. So you get a temporary feel good, but at some point it slams back in your face. It's sort of like a boomerang, a big one, and you're not prepared to catch it. And if you're not prepared to catch it, what is it going to do? Just hit you in the nose, right? All right. What were some of the other questions that their answers that everything you need to know is already within you? Cliche, cliche, cliche. Not a judgment, just the truth. So now what? Everything's within you, but your ego's blocking it. So it's an easy thing to say, but we need more information, whoever made that suggestion. Living the Light by Shakti Gawain. If baby Jesus ever wanted to be praised, it would happen now. I read Living in the Light some 20-something years ago when it was one of the first spiritual books that landed on shelves. And it's just as good to this very day because it teaches you how to become responsible for yourself. Living in the light is a responsibility. You are responsible for how you feel about others, about yourself, and how you react. And living in the light requires that responsibility. Living in the Light, Chapter 2, taught me boundaries, taught me how to say no, and taught me all the many reasons why I keep saying yes when I should be saying no. Living in the Light taught me to honor myself. But please remember, in any advice given to you about spiritual awakening, that the easy way, the tempting way, the creative way, the exciting way, the fun way may not be your actual way. The mind has its tricks to make you think you're on track, and that's an ego desire that's pulling you towards that way, right? So many people go from this unawakened living into New Age or American spiritual teachings, and they realize they simply traded one manner of endless seeking and pain for another set of ways to be attached and to be in the same pain. It's really common. If you notice that, people come out of religion, they go into New Age, and then they have the same conditioned reactions and responses and ways of life as they did in the religion. Have you noticed that? So just be aware. This is not a judgment. This is just a observation of something that I see. People going from one path to another, and the same judgments and attachments are still there. So the true path is up to you. For me, it was the discipline path. For me, it was the path of sound. It won't come easy. It will take work. And a true teacher, master, or guru will tell you things that you don't want to hear. They will give you assignments that you resist, that you don't want to do, that you say that you can't do. And a true teacher will catalyze you out of your comfort zone. So your ego will thwart that journey. It'll attempt to kind of pull you down a shallow path of growth, a path that says, oh, that's more me. That feels good. But a true teacher will say, what? Who is you? What's this me that's saying it only wants things that feel good? Let's go deeper. A true teacher will help you question who you are. So this, trust your heart, your own gurus inside of you messages, they're really sweet, but they're not actually helpful. Follow the path that you think you can't do. Notice I said think, because thinking isn't the way of choosing a path. Your mind will tell you don't need anyone, but it's actually not true. We're here for human connection. If that were untrue, we wouldn't be born with mothers. If we're here to love ourselves first and that self-love is the path, we also wouldn't be born with mothers. Mothers actually teach us how to receive and give love. That's why we're born, oftentimes, in family units. And if we aren't, we attract people who will teach us that, or we learn it by giving that. And we do it out of need. We are programmed to need other people. We are programmed for loving connection, even if in our very nature, we think it's not there. In our nature, it actually is there. It's nurture that's telling you it isn't there, or the lack of, in this case, the lack of nurturing that's telling you it's not there. But in your nature, it is there. And nothing can program that out of you. Not even a well-programmed capitalist society. So, trusting your heart is for those that are already awake. It's not for beginners. Acting in love, showing compassion is the path for beginners until you feel what it feels like, until you know what it feels like to give and receive love. Trusting your heart is not your answer in spiritual awakening because your mind has a well-conditioned block to the heart. And spiritual practice will unblock, undo, and pave a way of truth to teach you how to trust your heart. But it's not a beginner's place. Your mind's going to get in the way. Your head's trained to block all that. All right. Okay. A little bit of a time for questions today. Starting now. Got about 10 more minutes for questions. You know, David, anything that starts with "I was told" will also make me question, who were you told by and why? When you're immediately told that you need a process, I would question that teaching. Meditation is not actually a process. It's a way of life. Sort of in the same way that Taoism isn't a religion, right? Compassion isn't a process. It is a way of life. So to consider the shamanic journey a process that you need, it's kind of why? Why do you need to know what that is to wake up? Why do you need to know what QHHT is to wake up? He says, I'm reading your thing now, and it says, I was told I was setting up to do a QHHT, and based on a gift that I discovered, I don't understand the languaging. There's not a lot of precise language in your in the way that you're speaking in that, so it could just be typos, but I'm not getting it. What I am sensing from your higher self here is that when you base things on a gift, gifts are not foundations. They are tools. It's the spirit inside of the mechanic that guides it how to work the wrench. The gift is the wrench. It shouldn't be telling you what to do at all. Spirit does. Awakening for the purpose of uncovering a gift is sort of like saying, I'm going to grow a vegetable garden so that I can harvest a reaper or a hoe or a digger or whatever the tools you use along the way to get those vegetables out of the garden. So when you try to awaken just so you can play around with the gift, that is an ego trick. Remember when I said Americans like to look for the flashy in things? You're looking for the flashy. You're looking for the shiny. And that's not the way to wake up. Shinies don't come until we're well ready for them. And if you force them by Kundalini practices and trying to raise your Kundalini, you will find that you can't manage what you just dug up. Morai, that would be a psychic reading question, which I don't do on here. That's cool. Elizabeth says, I remember my healing abilities in my life in Lemuria. That's good. I'd say that when it comes to exploring the Akash for purposes of awakening, the past is the past for a reason. When you begin to remember it naturally and the veil isn't there for you, then by all means go for it. But when you go digging around in your past, you go digging around in the Akash, I urge you to question your intentions. What are you looking for that currently isn't in your life? Standardly speaking, most people that seek from the Akash believe that the past is the reason for their present pain. But the past is over. And if you're veiled from something, then your pain is actually coming from the now. And you're veiling it very, very deeply because you don't want to face the now. Can karmic energy and patterns and memory carry over into your present? Absolutely. But all the answers are more powerfully devised in the now. The past is veiled for a reason, for your protection. Maybe your brain did it. Maybe you put a veil in there in another lifetime, and then you go digging around in this lifetime and pulling up that veil, and then you're sad that you did, right? So some people dig around and play in the veil and feel like they uncover certain things about themselves. Some people don't even have a veil. I wasn't born with one, apparently, so all those things are known to me. Spirit apparently thinks I can handle it. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way, quite frankly. How do you practice compassion? I have so many classes on that. Find me over at Patreon on that because I really could speak a long time And I want to honor that answer and not give it a simple short answer. Do you find guided meditation to meet your higher self useful? For some people. I didn't particularly find it useful for me. Granted, you're speaking to someone who met her higher self at age 5 and then recognized that there was never a higher to begin with. There is no higher, there is no lower, there is no hierarchy in spirituality. There isn't. It doesn't exist. We do that because we believe time and confinement and limitation and separation is true. So when you begin to change your conditioned language, and New Age has a lot of conditioned languages, higher, lower, third dimension, fourth dimension, fifth dimension. Well, let me tell you what, you guys are on all of them. And if you resist it, that's how you know it's true. You have to be able to dip into other dimensions. You have to be able to experience it for the purposes of connection. You can't help others unless you can meet them where they are. Yeah, Gandhi has to drop down to the third dimension if there even is a down. He would have to do that in order to help other people. He'd have to meet them wherever they are in their perception of lower or higher, right? So I urge you guys to start with language and to literally decondition the words higher and lower. Start there today. Can you do that? That'll help you a lot. I would also go towards the words good and bad and start to release those from your vocabulary as well. I strongly advise being aware of the words that come out of your mouth, because when you're aware of the words that come out of your mouth and how they're very gauged and conditioned for separation, you become aware of the thoughts that are in your head and how they got there. How are you doing? You know, not many people ask that. I really appreciate that, Baba Jira. I'm grieving. I know a lot of you can't tell that, but I lost a very dear friend a couple of days ago, and I knew it was coming, but it didn't make it any easier. So despite what you see on the surface, what's deep inside of me is grief. Yeah, that's what's going on. Advice for dropping judgment? What I just said about awareness of thoughts. Judgments come up as a natural course of human language. So be aware of what comes out of your mouth and what thoughts were there before you spoke or during your speaking, excuse me. The best human guide that I've found for that is actually any courses you can get your hands on nonviolent communication. Nonviolent communication is one of the most powerful but simple, creative, beautiful, loving spiritual practices that I could possibly advise to you. Nonviolent communication. Undo the way that you are thinking and speaking, and then you will be aware of the feelings that created all of it. How are my children doing? Thank you for asking. They're doing really, really well. Who asked that question? MK. Is that Marie? I think it is. Feels like it. Emmy is doing really, really well. She just learned, she's 8 years old, and she just learned to ride a bike, and she's so excited. So, yeah. Oh, Sarah, what an interesting thing. Just saw what you said. She jumps online as a dog about grief. I'm sorry to hear that, Babs. So Emmy's doing really well. She just learned to ride a bike. Eli is doing really well. We talked about this in the beginning of this program. He's reading the book, The Giver. And I read what books my kids read in school for awareness of what's being taught to them. And I had mixed feelings about it. It's very dystopian until until the giver was introduced in the book. And when the giver was introduced in the book as a character, I cried with connection to this being. This being exemplifies my entire life in this lifetime. His pain, his need to be alone, his even when you walk into his study, it's like his whole, his bookshelves look like mine, just full of knowledge, full of memories that he's holding for a collective, not in this lifetime, but in thousands of lifetimes. So we are memory holders. What does that mean? It means we are love holders, we are pain holders, we are suffering holders. So I really identified with that as being something that I've done for many, 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 many lifetimes. And I cried for him and I cried for myself. And I was just like, holy cow, this is so beautiful and such a realization for me to see my own self exemplified in a character in a book. It's never actually happened before. I'm a bit of a weirdo. So Eli's doing really well. He's loving the book and it's giving us a lot to talk about, and we're connecting, and I'm able to teach him some spiritual principles, probably for the first time. Eli's an intellectual. He's actually a genius. And we're connecting spiritually with this book. And it's just so beautiful. Like we got away this weekend. We went on a little mini weekend vacation, which we hadn't done in a long time. Just me and the kids. And he and I really connected with this book. And as I was reading it, he was like, what did you think about when this happened? And what did you think? And I was like, well, what did you think about it? And yeah, he's a smart kid. He's doing great. Aiden is my mystery child. I never know how he is doing. He is my challenge. He's had a teacher recently reach out to me and just say, hey, we need a conference. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. Aiden doesn't connect well with his brothers and sisters. He doesn't show a lot of compassion. He doesn't allow hugs. Doctors throughout his time, he's on individual education plans based upon what they call autism, and it's not mild autism. Like he's low to moderate functioning is what we'd call him. And lately I'd say it's moderate functioning. He hasn't been in low functioning. His schools try to say that, but I don't really see that in our world here at home. He is in an exceptional school, and I'm happy for that. For the first time in his life that he is in a charter school that actually knows how to connect with him and to get him motivated. He's addicted to the internet. I could keep going and going and going. So that's Aiden, and he's a challenge. Cole is amazing. He needs more discipline as usual. He also is addicted to the internet, but he also is very, very close to me, and he loves to get away, and he loves to go on trips with me. He loves to connect with me. We connect normally in the mornings and in the evenings. He's actually out going for a walk right now. He's like one of only two out of four of my kids enjoy exercise, and he's one of them. So he's going for a walk right now. And I can't really say much about how he is. Cole is always like grounded in the same, peaceful and supportive. And he's like everybody's rock in the entire household. And I have to watch out for that in my parenting of him. I have to watch that he's actually okay. Yeah. Kids should take Gary out on a walk. It actually doesn't work that way. What happens with Gary is we leave for a walk. Gary, that's my cat. For those of you who don't know, he runs up past us while we're on the sidewalk, and he flies up past all of us and then jumps in front of us. And because I can read animals, he says to me, oh, I'm taking you for a walk now. And then he prances in front of us, and then something will distract him, like a bird or, a lizard or something. And then he goes off and chases him. And then if we get too far ahead, he dashes up behind us, gets in front of us again and says, oh, I must walk you. Sorry. This is really hilarious. He's brilliant. Yeah. All right. Is it wrong to trust my awakening process to source? No. But what does that look like to you? You need to be well prepared, and you are one of my students, so I can catalyze you right now, Pearl. Tell me what that looks like. A person who is trusting their awakening process to source actually has a process and they have a practice and they do it daily. You guys like Carrie? He's the funniest cat I've ever had. I thought baby cat was a hoot, but Gary just, let me tell you about manifestation. When I found Gary, when I found baby cat rather, baby cat, I just needed some love in my life. I needed someone and something that was completely loyal to me, that loved me first more than any of the other kids. And I wasn't ashamed to say that and manifest that. I'm like, I need this cat to be my cat. Like, he needs to choose me. I need to feel chosen. And I was just in that stage of life where I'm like, I want someone or something to choose me and love me. And I want to be shown what that's like. And I manifested it right away. He was such a needy baby. I mean, he liked the kids. He loved them. He was sweet to them. But his cup of tea was me. And we got on well. I couldn't shower without Gary. I couldn't use the restroom without Gary. You can forget private time. You can forget meditation. You're sitting there trying to meditate and a cat jumps on top of your shoulders or head. You know, it's a very good practice to just see if you can continue your samadhi. And then there was baby cat. Baby cat was that. And then after that, Gary, I kind of, when baby cat left our life, I was like, you know what? I'm traveling right now. I am, I'm doing these things. I don't really want to experience that exactly in the same way. I need a cat who lets me love him, but whose primary interest isn't me. I need him to love the kids, because when I'm traveling, and which I have to do often because my fiance lives in another country, and immigration is a slow roll right now. So I travel a good bit. And during that time, they need a snuggly. So that's what he is. He loves them. He loves all children. But when it comes to me, like, he doesn't dislike me. He comes and sits by me. He'll sit by my leg and purr very loudly. He especially likes when I feed him, and that is our connection. He loves food. I love food. It's all good, right? So he has his use and I have my use in his life. My use is to feed him. That's what he loves about me. And he, if I'm sick, like, he can be very loving if I'm not well or if I'm having a hard time. Otherwise, Gary is all about the kids, protective of the kids, watchful of the kids, all about the kids. Yvonne, that's really sweet of you to offer that to Babs. She probably really could use that. Anybody who's grieving from loss could use prayers of relief. I have a little white dog waiting for me somewhere. That's cool. All right, guys, I got to end now this particular session. Thanks for showing up live. If I can get this amount of people live, I could definitely do it more often than I was. I kind of stopped doing lives for a little while because I don't like to teach to an empty audience. But thank you for showing up. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for that super chat. This is a free service, but donations are always appreciated. You should never turn away abundance. If someone wants to give you a gift, take it. Take it, take it, take it. You want to know a funny little thing with me about gifts? I actually have a trigger when people give me gifts. For some reason, I'm fine with money. You know, single moms are always fine with money. But when it comes to like gifts, if you're going to give me like a crystal or mail something to me, I actually don't. I get triggered by it. Why? Because here's what happens when I get a gift. It is the ultimate trigger for me. I'm still working through this. Somebody sent me a gift. I'm going to give you some examples. And in that particular instance, she was like, so did you get it? So did you like it? So are you using it? Like, yes. So you actually sent it to my P.O. box. I only check that once a week. You know, then I'm responsible. I'm responsible for checking the P.O. box on time to know that it arrived. I'm responsible for letting them know that I loved it. I'm responsible for formulating a connection with that person because they gave me a gift. These are all the things that ego tells me about gifts. Have you ever felt that way? So instead of being grateful for the gift, I just get afraid of the gift. I'm like, oh shit, That means I owe you something, and I cannot owe you something. I got 4 kids, a cat, thousands of students. So this is how I give back. When people come to my house, I let them pick a crystal. And sometimes I'll pick one for them. Sometimes I'll be like, you can pick a crystal, and I feel like this one is calling you. Sometimes I just really go out of my way to give to people, but I can't stand it when it's obligated. Like birthdays, I will never remember your birthday, ever. I ask my fiance at least once a month when her birthday is, and we've been together for 13 months. Yeah, I'm working on it. When you carry the entire collective memories of the world, you forget things. Am I an earth sign? Yes. Yes, I am a Taurus. And I am a very practical, fully exemplified version of the Taurus sign. I'm stubborn and I'm luxurious, and I love when people give me gifts, but as soon as they give it to me, I'm like, oh God, this means we're friends. And I've got friends, just like 2 of them, right? That's all I can handle. I want to be everyone's friend, but I have extremely powerfully divisive boundaries. Like my boundaries are, I love you. I love you. Our connection is in class. Like my boundaries are really strong. And it's not because I don't want friends. It's because I know that I won't remember your birthday and you will not get Christmas cards because of your expectations and my fears of your expectations and my fears of your judgments. Then I will very powerfully choose to avoid that trigger. So I'm still working through that. Now, my friend Matt, on the other hand, who you guys know very well through his love revolution, when he gets a gift, he's like, oh, I got a gift. It's Christmas. It's Christmas all the time. And I'm like, you're not worried you're going to have to write a thank you card back? He's like, nah, not really. I'm like, do you? He's like, sometimes. Yeah. Sarah. Yeah, I have friends, and I also have friends, like friends have purposes in my life. I have like 2 best friends, one male, one female. I kind of have like a teacher friend as well who teaches me a lot and who I also teach. We find ourselves to be very equal in that regard. I have friends that are acquaintances that I meet for Friendsgivings. I have a friend that lives way up past Logan that we're kind of, do you have friends that are like, we're friends no matter what? Penny's my friend no matter what. We get, and we're friends when, if I really need something or she really needs something. So do you have one of those friends who are like, we're friends when? We're friends when there's pain. We're friends when we want to celebrate. We're friends for specific reasons. And the rest of the time, I honor her privacy. Penny's a very private person. She needs a lot of space and time away, and I do too. And then when we see each other, it's like full on. It's like, girl, hi. We're jumping up and down. And it's like just love. And then we don't see each other for like 2 years. It rolls that way. We might talk on the phone, maybe once every 3 months, maybe. You see what I'm saying? Because we value each other's privacy. My friend Samantha, the same way. Like I got her back. We talk, but we talk during times when we really need it. And we visit during times when we really want to. Yeah. So I call those universal friends, as my friend Sarah over here has so delicately put it, universal friends. That you can just catch up anytime. And I don't, if they send me a gift, I say thank you, right? But I don't owe them a nice handwritten card. I don't even owe them a phone call. I just say thank you whenever I can just say it through the ether and I know they're going to hear it. So it requires a lot of trust to have those kind of friends. All right, guys, I really got to go because I'm starting my private sessions and mentorships with you in about 10 minutes. So I'll see you for that. And what do I have going on this week? I think we have Kripa Yoga, which is Pratyahara practice. They're Kriyas on Wednesday. That's tomorrow at 1 p.m. on patreon.com/Pamela Aaralyn. Those are practices that anybody can do of any level and have powerful effects in your awakening and in your bodily healing and in your energy management, both physically and emotionally. very powerful part of awakening is having a spiritual practice. So Kripa Yoga is my spiritual practice. I call it the yoga of grace. It's not American yoga. We've only done asana like twice in 2 years. We're not asana based really. Yeah. So you can join me for that, on Patreon tomorrow if you want. And then Friday, it's either Thursday or Friday. I'm not sure which. You can look at the schedule yourself. I'm going to be channeling consciousness. For those of you who've been observing my channelings of consciousness, you want to call it God, you can. You want to call it universal mind, you can. For me, it's a metaphysical thing, unified field type of thing for me. Best explanation of that. If you really want some really high frequency stuff, go for that. So that's going to be Thursday or Friday on Patreon as well. And then, of course, I've got my Foundations of Channeling course, which you're still welcome to join. That class is on November the 31st. It's a Monday at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. And that is on PamelaAaralyn.com. You'll get a Zoom link and you'll get a recording if you cannot attend it live. Okay. So I'm going to be working with people. I like to work with my students in these classes, both on screen and in the chat that's on Zoom. You don't feel like coming on screen. And I like to help them determine their unique creative ways of channeling. We do this kind of class maybe about once a year. I actually don't do this kind of class a lot. So the last time I had a class like this was a couple years ago, and it was Foundations of Channeling 101, 201, 301, and 401. Do you guys remember that? So this class is like that on crack. I hope you can join it. If not, probably do it again in another year or two. And I'm so happy for those of you who are registered. We have about 36 attendees right now, so we're keeping it small. Then that means with 36 attendees, only about half of you show up because you got jobs and lives like all of us do. So those of you who show up live will get the deepest experience. I really urge you to show up live. The one hard thing about these classes is you cannot ask me questions in advance. I don't work that way. That's not how I read and work with people. But what you can do if you can't show up is just show up for a minute, just enough to put your question in the Q&A section of Zoom so that I have it on record, and then you can leave. Then you can go do your job, go do whatever you want, just so that I have the question. But please don't email it to me. That gets overwhelming, and I don't work that way. I need to see the question during the class. I work in the present moment. So I hope you guys can make that. I'll link that up for you later below. It's already linked in the description of this video, but I'll link it in chat as well. So I'll see you later. Namaskar.